Welcome to the Jim Masters Show Live, everybody. How are you and you and you? Hope you guys are doing well. Hope you had a really good weekend. We're still celebrating Columbus Day weekend here in the United States. And hope you're having a good day. Thanks for joining us here on our Entertainment Lifestyle Talk Show series. We are now in week number 23. Could you imagine that? But the thing about the 23 is 150 episodes and growing. We've been doing this series every single night since early May, every single day. And sometimes we do it in the afternoon as well. Like yesterday, we had a great guest, musician and composer and songwriter from Sweden, live from Sweden, John Magnusson. I don't know if you saw that episode. If you missed it, we did an afternoon episode, Sunday afternoon musical episode yesterday. It was really cool, a lot of fun, and we really enjoyed ourselves. And again, that was live from Sweden with our special guest. You can see that on YouTube. Matter of fact, you can see all of the past episodes of our Entertainment Lifestyle Talk Show series, The Jim Masters Show, live on YouTube. That's right. Everything's there for you on YouTube for the asking. A lot of people have been binge watching all of our shows, which we really love. That's fantastic. And they've been sharing the links too. And you guys have been sharing the links and tagging everybody and telling everybody about our Entertainment Lifestyle Talk Show series, bringing back the lost art of conversation with light, levity, and love, or as we call it here on our show, we've coined the phrase lovity. And you guys are all the lovities. All the viewers call themselves lovities. They call me Mr. Lovity. They induct our guests into the Lovity Hall of Fame every single day. And all the guests love it too. And I get such great feedback after the shows from the guests telling us how much they really enjoy being a guest on the show. They like the vibe, the atmosphere, the levity, the comfort zone maybe that's created, and all the inspiration that happens here live on our series. So it is good to have you with us. We also want to take a moment to say happy Thanksgiving to all of our viewers and our faithful, our lovities in Canada, our neighbors to the north. We broadcast this show out of the greater New York City area on the southern New England coast between New York and Boston in the United States, and our neighbors to the north, Canada, celebrating their Thanksgiving holiday. Ours is next month, of course, the latter part of November here in the United States, but our faithful friends and viewers and lovities to the north, next door in Canada, we wish you and yours a blessed and very happy Thanksgiving from Jim and all of us at the Jim Masters Show Live. Lots of people watching right now. We appreciate that. As always, we have our glass here. This was still from the birthday, this glass, from our viewer and dear friend Kathleen Walker. Yes, the official New York Mets didn't do so well this year, but they have a new owner, so there is hope. New York Mets wine glass, which we are still using. We have a little orange juice in here as well. So we toast all of you. Thanks for joining us on a Monday live on YouTube and also on Facebook and Periscope and Twitch. And again, share that YouTube channel, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We would love that as we continue building that channel together. Now, let's say hello to some of our favorites, which of course are our lovities here on the show. Good evening, Jim and lovities. We welcome director, producer, MOTl DIDNER to the show tonight. Looking forward to incredible conversation in Lovity Hall soon. Well, he is here. MOTl is here. And we thank you very much in North Carolina, Christine, for joining us on YouTube. Willie is here. Hello, my dear friend and all lovities. What a cool, very interesting. I wonder where you got that smile from. That's a cool and very positive and hopeful profile photo there on YouTube. It's perfect, Willie. Hello, my dear friend and all lovities. Have a nice evening. You as well. And we toast you watching in Amsterdam and Holland in the Netherlands, where it's 1 a.m. We appreciate that. Good to see you, Willie. Mary Bishop is here, also on YouTube. Hello, everyone. Happy Thanksgiving to all of our Canadian lovities. We have actually family in Canada, in New Brunswick, on my mother's grandmother's side of the family. They actually settled a whole town and a mountain, which is a resort area up in New Brunswick called Kierstead Falls and Kierstead Mountain. And that's named after my mother's side of the family, which is amazing. So Cheers to everybody in Canada watching. We have a worldwide global audience that watches every night. We really appreciate that. We love it. Hello, Lovedies. Sherry watching on YouTube as well. Thank you for joining us on YouTube. And again, when you subscribe to the channel, to the YouTube channel, you're able to comment on the YouTube channel as well, just like you do anywhere else. And Anne is here. Hi, Jim and everyone. Happy Thanksgiving to our Canadian neighbors. Good to see you, Anne. Tulips from Willie. Beautiful photo that you have there as well. Very, very nice. And very, very pleasant profile photo you have there. Couch wiggles for Jennifer in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Ann Wozniak sending in hearts. We toast you as well, Anne. And hello, Jim and all the lovelies. Yes, happy Thanksgiving, Canadians. And we extend our wishes for a beautiful and blessed Thanksgiving as you have yours in October and we have ours in November. Hello, Jim and everyone. Juanita watching in South Africa. We love when you're with us all the time, Juanita. We toast you as well. Christopher is here from Ohio. Hello, Jim and all lovelies. It's great to have you watching the Jim Masters Show live and also with us as well, Christopher. And Sherry says, hello, Mr. Lovely. So happy to be in Lovely Hall tonight. We are honored to have you here as always and honored to have everybody here. Bernadette here. Hello, Jim and all my lovely friends. Good to see you, Bernadette. Renee in Iowa. Hi, everyone. Good to see you, Renee. Hope your day's going well. And let's see. Oh, yes. Toasting and smiles from Merlin. Again, hope you're having a fantastic Thanksgiving holiday weekend. Slancha. Absolutely. Thank you very much, Christopher. We appreciate that. Toasting to you as well, Willie. And Mary Bishop is toasting, which is really nice. And Kathleen in New York City, we say hello to you as well, Kathleen. Hope you're doing well. And good stuff here. All the lovedies seem to be troopers. Absolutely. Happy Thanksgiving to our Canadian lovedies, all the viewers in Canada as well. In Missouri, Claudia is here. Hello, Jim. Hope your Monday was great. Mine has been good. Fantastic. Good stuff, everybody. Well, we welcome you. All the cast of characters are here. If you're looking for George Burns, oh yeah, he's always here and he's always watching every single night with a cigar and his hanky and his bow tie. Gilligan is here, Jeannie is here, all the rest. We'll show the rest of the cast of characters in just a moment. But first, let's welcome our very special guest who's joining us here. He's an incredible individual. He is an Associate Artistic Director of the National Yiddish Theater, Folksbiene, and we're so excited to have him here. Now, we're going to talk about his illustrious career. We're going to be talking about the incredible work that they do at the theater and lots more. We have some video. We have a whole host of cool things to share with all of you here on the show. You've probably seen us and his picture when we were promoting in advance his appearance on the show, and we're very excited to have him here. Let me tell you a little bit about his wonderful background as well, and then we've got some terrific video we're going to be showing you as well. MOTl DIDNER was born in 1973 in New Brunswick, New Jersey, the son of a public school teacher and a human factors engineer. And he attended public school and went to Hebrew school in New Jersey. And he graduated with honors from New York's Tisch School of the Arts, where he studied acting and directing at the Playwrights Horizons Theater School studio. He has worked at the National Yiddish Theater, Folksbiene, since 2003 and currently serves as the Associate Arts Director. Now, although he received a Jewish education through the age of 17, Yiddish was not really a part of the curriculum and was not spoken at home. So a few early experiences with Yiddish culture did ignite his imagination, and his maternal grandmother took him to see the off-Broadway production of The Golden Land back in 1986, and also gave him a copy of a very special text when he was a teenager and shared many lunches too with him at the Second Avenue Deli, which is, I'm sure, a lot of wonderful memories created there with the two. While studying theater in college, he began to acquaint himself with Yiddish plays in English translation. After 6 years of sojourn in Richmond, Virginia, where he served as co-artistic director of the Richmond Performing Arts Collective, he returned to New York City just a few months after being there, and he serendipitously saw a flyer advertising a free 1-hour instant Yiddish class offered by the Workmen's Circle. And he went on to study in the Yvel Uriel Wainwright Summer Course 2003 at Columbia University. Now, that summer, he began volunteering at the National Yiddish Theater Volksbühne. And the first of these events was the annual gala at the 92nd Street Y. And the rest is history. I mean, he just really fell in love with it, and he does some incredible work there, and so does the theater. They did a presentation of Fiddler on the Roof in Yiddish, which was extraordinary and so critically acclaimed and well received. And that's just one of the many things that they have done. And even through everything that we've been going through lately, they are still offering a ton of great opportunities for you to learn about them and to enjoy some of their works. They did a fantastic web series too. We're going to talk about that, show you some quick clips and so much more. It's a national treasure, this theater, and we are so honored to have, him here. As we talk about it, I just want to show you a couple of other real quick clips here. This is a cool one here. This was part of that web series that they were doing, 15-minute Yiddish, more or less, a weekly lunch and learn with MOTl DIDNER. The basics of Yiddish conversation, no Yiddish experience necessary. And that's fantastic. Again, the theater itself is truly a national treasure, the National Yiddish Theater Volksbühne, and we're so excited to have an opportunity to talk about that. If you're not familiar with them, you will be on this particular broadcast today. Just want to show you some other wonderful things that we have. But first, why don't we welcome our very special guest to the show right now collectively. One big lovely welcome with all of the lovelies out there watching. Let's welcome MOTl to the show. Welcome, my friend. It's great to have you with us. And
thank you, Jim.
Happy Monday to you. And thanks for joining us on the show today. How's your day going, my friend?
It's been a great day so far, and this is only going to make it better. Thank you very much for having me, Jim. Thank you very much to our friend June for putting this all together. And thank you to all the lovedies for being out there tonight.
Yes, it's coming in loud and clear here at Maryland in Wichita, Kansas, welcoming you to Lovety Hall. And Ann is as well. Looking forward to hearing your stories. Jennifer Barry in Allentown, Pennsylvania is welcoming you. Merlin, who's celebrating Thanksgiving in Canada, welcoming you to Lovety Hall as well. Kathleen in New York City welcomes you. Juanita in South Africa is welcoming you as well.
Wow.
Willie in Europe, in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam, Holland, welcoming you to the best show in the earth, the Jim Masters Show. Thank you, Willie. Mary Bishop is here welcoming you. Christopher is welcoming you. Bernadette is welcoming you as well. Everybody's welcoming you. Kathy Short is welcoming you. And this is really, really nice. And again, there's lots of lovely on this show. Marsha Lyon is welcoming you. Sherry Schoenlein is welcoming you. So happy that you're with us in Lovety Hall. Wow. That's just a few of the welcomes. Isn't that nice?
You've got a fantastic, dedicated group of viewers, and it's nice to see that they're representing so much of the world.
They really, really are. And again, it's a beautiful thing when you can bring people together, and the theater does that, right? I mean, it's such I mentioned that it's really a national treasure to have something like that exist. Tell us early on, I mentioned in the introduction, your early upbringing, in New Jersey, and that Yiddish wasn't necessarily the spoken language within the household, but you were introduced to it and you became very fascinated with it. Tell us about the fascination and the inspiration that you had and continue to have for it.
Sure. So my grandparents all spoke Yiddish. That was the immigrant generation. On my father's side, they came from Hungary and from Ukraine, and on my mother's side from Belarus and Poland. So really representing all of Eastern Europe, and that was their common language. But like many immigrants at that time in America, assimilation was very important to them, and they felt that if you want to be a good American, you speak English and only English. It was really before the time that people took pride in their ethnic heritage and passed along their language and traditions. So my parents grew up only speaking English, and so it was something that I was aware of. It's something that I heard. I didn't understand the Yiddish language, though. And told the audience already about a few of those formative experiences. My grandparents lived on the east side in Manhattan, and we used to go to the old Second Avenue Deli. It used to be located actually on Second Avenue, which is where the Yiddish Theater District had been. And now it closed the original location, and now they're in Midtown. But they had a special room in the off to one side called the Molly Picon room. Molly Picon was a famous Yiddish theater actress who crossed over to both Broadway and then to American film and television. So your viewers may have seen her. Depending on what age they are, they certainly would have seen her playing Yenta in the movie version of Fiddler on the Roof. And on TV, they may have seen her in Car 54, Where Are You? Or in the 80s on The Facts of Life.
Oh,
and then
really?
she played Natalie's grandmother.
Oh, I think I remember that episode.
Yeah, several. And
you're also related in some way to the brilliant talk show host that many of us know or knew, David Susskind.
Yes, he was a cousin on my mother's side. I never got to meet him, unfortunately, but I did watch his TV show when I was a kid.
So you have a lot of this entertainment background within the family, huh?
Yeah, not directly. My brother is a musician. He went in the musical route. I went in the theatrical route. But we're a family that's always been very big supporters of the arts. I remember seeing theater from a very young age. I think when I was 4 or 5 years old, we saw the original production of Annie with Andrea McArdle.
Yes, yeah.
We saw the revival of The King and I with Yul Brynner. I'll tell you a little bit later on my story how I almost saw Camelot with Richard Burton. I did see Camelot. I didn't see it with Richard Burton.
Or Elizabeth Taylor.
but it's a good story. And so my grandmother would tell me stories about the Yiddish theater, and she did take me to see in 1986 there was this English Yiddish sort of bilingual musical review called The Golden Land it's the story of immigration, and it had a lot of songs and humor that really resonated with me. Even though I didn't literally understand everything, a lot of it was translated within the course of the show. And so that sort of got stuck in the back of my mind. And then my grandmother also gave me a record by Theodore Bekel. Now, Theodore Bekel, of course, very well known. He was the original Captain Von Trapp in Broadway's The Sound of Music. He was in a lot of American films. The Russians Are Coming. The Russians Are Coming, just to name a few. I actually knew him because as a teenager, I was into Frank Zappa. And he was in a Frank Zappa movie called 200 Motels. So when my grandmother gave me this album of Theodore Bekel singing Yiddish songs, I said, "Oh, I know that guy." It just really drew me in, and I listened to it till it was an LP, and I listened to it till it wore out,
right?
And it felt like it connected to somewhere deep inside. And then, as you mentioned, I went to NYU to study theater, and I came across several Yiddish plays in English translation. One of them I absolutely fell in love with. It was a play called The Golem, by a writer named H. Lavik, and it's brilliant. I mean, it's a brilliant play, and it's written partially in iambic pentameter. And the English didn't seem quite right, and it was always in my mind that I wanted to get to the source of that play and to get to it in the original language. So it was years later, though, that I actually had the opportunity to start studying Yiddish, and then everything just came together very quickly. I realized there was a much bigger Yiddish culture that was still in operation in New York. I didn't even know that there was still a professional Yiddish theater operating until I started studying Yiddish and learned about the Volksbühne. And then it just became my love of this language and culture coming together with my love of theater, and it just sparks a career.
Tell us, you were telling me something really fascinating about the derivation of your first name there too, and how that develops, because you were born Matthew, right?
Correct. So MOTl is my Yiddish name. It's this. If you think of MOTl in Fiddler on the Roof, that's the same name. So MOTl is derived from my Hebrew name, which is Mordechai. That's, for those of you who know the Book of Esther, that's Esther's uncle, one of the heroes of that story. And in Yiddish, in the Yiddish dialect, it's pronounced Mordche. And MOTl comes from Mordche. The way that Matt is Matthew, MOTl is Mordechai.
So Mordechai is the actual...
is the Hebrew name, yeah.
Oh, fantastic. So people that love you say that they are mortified as opposed to mortified. That's funny. So the National Yiddish Theater Volksbühne, tell us about the history of this extraordinary theater and the importance of having such a culturally aware center for the arts in our country. And I think now more than ever, we need to be cognizant and respectful and appreciative of all of our differences and everything that makes us one and united as well. And this theater is absolutely extraordinary. Tell us about it.
Sure. So the National Yiddish Theater Volksbühne has been around since 1915. That's 105 years.
Wow.
It started out as sort of an alternative literary theater. Back then, the Second Avenue, as I had mentioned, it was the Yiddish Rialto, the Yiddish Broadway. There were, at its height, there were 14 theaters located between Houston Street and 14th Street. It was a huge, if you imagine 14 theaters in 14 blocks, it was, and then some of them were really huge. There were 2,000 seat houses along there, and they packed them in 8 shows a week, mostly with the immigrants who were living in the Lower East Side. These were Jewish laborers. They were working in sweatshops and factories during the day. And this was in a time there was no radio, no television, not really even any cinema. And they would come together in the evenings to go to the theater, because that was the one kind of outlet. It was leisure. It was a place to be social, to come together. The stories that were on the stage reflected their own stories in many ways. It filled gaps of things that they were missing from the old home, and as well as instructing them on how to get along in the new country, and then just providing laughter and joy and tears and music and all the things that people really, culturally need to thrive. So the downside to the commercial theater was that the shows weren't always of the best quality. When you have to fill 8 houses a week with repertory theater companies, and there's 14 of them in operation just along that one street. There were also Yiddish theaters in the Bronx and in Brooklyn. You had to constantly be creating new material, and a lot of it was not necessarily the most original. It was formulaic. It was, think of a lot of what you see on TV these days. Some of it is classic and for the ages, and a lot of it is meant to be, for now, it's fine, it's entertaining, and it'll disappear over time. So the Volksbühne was founded by members of an organization called the or it's now called the Workers' Circle. It was an immigrant aid society that provided things like healthcare and other sorts of assistance. It had an education department, and they also had schools, Yiddish schools. So these were secular people. So for families that were not interested in religious education for their children, they could send them to these Yiddish schools. And so several of their members wanted to provide a more worldly and literary theater. So they had a drama club, and the very first thing that they presented in 1915 was a Yiddish translation of Ibsen's An Enemy of the People.
Mm.
So they were served, and then people say, well, why would you do Ibsen in Yiddish? Well, why would you do it in English? It was written in Norwegian. But they were serving a Yiddish-speaking population, and they wanted to bring what was considered the best, most socially conscious, uplifting theater of the time. So in the first few seasons, they were mostly doing Yiddish translations of works written from all over the world. So we had some Pushkin and Gorky and Hauptmann. So you had plays from Russian and German and Norwegian done in Yiddish translation. And then as the Yiddish theater itself was growing, because we can talk a little bit about that separately, the Yiddish theater really was only born in the 1860s. So as the Yiddish theater itself was growing up, they started presenting a lot of new original works as well. And then after World War II, as the Yiddish theater was really, the commercial Yiddish theater industry was collapsing because the second and third generations born in America were, as with my parents, were not being taught Yiddish. And the Jewish population was moving out of the Lower East Side, out to the suburbs. They weren't able to support a commercial theater enterprise. But the Folksbiene was always nonprofit, operating under the auspices of the Workers' Circle. And so the Folksbiene became a refuge. All of the professional actors, the theater stars in the 50s and the 60s who really didn't have commercial work anymore, were coming to the Folksbiene, which was steadily professionalizing by the 70s and the 80s, except for little Yiddish theater projects that popped up. It was the last Yiddish theater left in the United States that was producing on a regular basis. And by 1998, it became fully professional. It became independently incorporated as a nonprofit, and it really took off from there. A new generation took over. It infused it with a lot of energy. We were bringing in a lot of new performers who were learning Yiddish in order to perform with us. We started using, in 2003, the year that I started, we began projecting English translation subtitle or super titles so that the audience could follow along. Before that, they had headsets where somebody would be kind of translating on the fly.
Right.
And
God bless that person translating on the fly. Not so easy to do.
No, and it really opened it up to whole new generations of audiences. We started getting a lot of sort of premiere recognition. Starting in 2004, we got our first Drama Desk Award nomination. We got nominated for a show every 2 or 3 years. And then finally, always the bridesmaid, never the bride, but along came Fiddler on the Roof in Yiddish. That was a huge runaway hit starting in 2018. And we won the Drama Desk Award for Best Revival of a Musical.
I know. Now, what was the germ of the idea, the inspiration to do Fiddler in Yiddish? How did that all happen? Because that was the talk of the town, if not beyond.
Yeah. So Fiddler was actually translated into Yiddish in 1965, the year after it debuted on Broadway. It was performed in Israel. It only ran for a few weeks, but they did create a cast album, which became very popular among the Yiddish-speaking circles here in America. And it was always sort of the big dream. Everybody would, I think about my career, going back, 10 years or so. And people would see our shows and they'd say, you know what you should do? You should do Fiddler on the Roof in Yiddish. And we're like, we know. But back then we were really a much leaner operation. When I first started, we were in residence at the JCC in Manhattan. And then following that, for the first 6 years, we were at the Baruch Performing Arts Center at
Oh
Baruch
yeah.
College at CUNY.
Mhm.
And
Great
it was
place.
wonderful. But our shows we had between 6 and 12 in the cast. Really, that was it tops. And then our orchestras for our musicals, maybe 4 to 6 pieces and not much more than that. And we had a big sea change in 2015 when we turned 100. We began a residency at where we are now at the Museum of Jewish Heritage, and it's a much larger theater. We moved from a 175 seat theater at Baruch to a 375 seat house, and it really changed the whole game. So the first show that we did there was called The Golden Bride, The Golden Akala. It was a 1927 big musical extravaganza. It had a cast of 20, which was a huge leap for us, and a 14-piece orchestra. And it really kind of showed us that we can take on much bigger projects than we ever had before. And that was when the light went off, bing, with Fiddler, because Fiddler had a cast of it was 29 on stage, and then we had our offstage covers. So it was a company of 31, and I believe we had a 13-piece orchestra for that one. And it was just an amazing opportunity for us to grow. Fiddler had been done in Yiddish, by the way, in Romania, in where we can talk more about that as well, because we have a relationship with the Romanian Yiddish theater in Warsaw and in Montreal, Canada. So so for all of our neighbors to the north who are watching tonight, you got it before we did. And so we took the chance. We're like, well, okay, this is the time to do it, but how are we ever going to get the rights?
Mm-hmm.
And we really just fell in a very narrow window, because the last Broadway production, the Bartlett Sher production with Danny Burstein as Tevye, had just closed about a month before. And usually with a show like Fiddler, some producer is going to jump in on the option right away.
Absolutely, yeah.
But there was a little window in there where nobody had optioned it yet. And so we were able to get the rights. It was translated, by the way, by an Israeli actor named Shraga Friedman, who had been he was a refugee from Poland. He had managed to escape in 1939, just before the war started, and he went to Israel, and he learned Hebrew, and he acted in the Hebrew theater there. He was actually in the Hebrew production of Fiddler first, before translating it into Yiddish.
That is absolutely amazing. So, yeah, Fiddler. I mean, when that came out, as in Yiddish at the theater, did it exceed everybody's expectations, or did you think it really was going to be well received? It was extraordinary.
Well, it's an interesting question. We originally had planned for an 8-week run. I said, there's no way. I said, this thing is going to run for 6 months. And it did run for 6 months downtown. I didn't predict that it was going to get picked up for a commercial run for nearly a year uptown, but I knew. I said it's Fiddler. Who doesn't love Fiddler? And they're going to love it even more in Yiddish. And then, of course, when we got Joel Gray on board as our director, that sealed the deal.
And how did that happen? He was all excited and said, "I want to be a part of this."
So Joel Gray, his father was a musician, Mickey Katz, a clarinet player who started out, I guess, most famously with the Spike Jones Orchestra.
That's right.
But then he struck out on his own doing Yiddish parodies. And so he did the Poipel Kishke Eater, and Dove Crockett, and his own parody of 16 Tons, and all these songs that were popular in the 50s and the 60s. He would play at the big hotels in the Catskills, the Borscht Belt. He started his own show in Los Angeles called the Borscht Capades, which is where young Joel Grey got his start. There's some excellent video of Joel Grey as a young man performing some of this material, which you can catch on YouTube. And so he had this love for it, but he didn't actually. Joel doesn't speak Yiddish, but it's sort of part of the DNA. So we first came in touch with Joel. I want to say it was 2012 or 2013. We honored him at a gala, and he performed a little bit of his father's repertoire, and everyone had just such a wonderful time and a lot of good feelings about it. So we approached him. Our artistic director, Zalman Mlotek, gave him a call and said, "Joel, I want you to either play Tevye or direct." And it didn't take him very long. He called back the next day and said, "Okay, I'm going to direct." And he brought in Stephen Skybell, who played our Tevye. They had been on Broadway together in Wicked, and Stephen had also been in the recent Broadway production of Fiddler, playing Laser Wolf, and he is just phenomenal. I mean, in my opinion, he in any language he's the finest Tevye ever.
That's fantastic. There's another performance too that you guys did. This one here.
Yes, The Sorceress last December.
Yeah, tell us about that. Another one that was presented in English and Russian super titles, huh?
Yeah, performed in Yiddish, and we project translations in both English and in Russian. Most of our show, including Fiddler, was in English and Russian super titles as well, because we do have a lot of Russian immigrants. They make up the largest number of contemporary Jewish immigrants. So we want them to come and be able to enjoy the show as well. So The Sorceress is an interesting piece. It's one of the earliest works of the Yiddish theater, and the very first piece of Yiddish theater ever done in the United States. And it's a fascinating story. So Yiddish theater was born out of this tradition called the Purim Spiel. So I talked before about Mordechai in the Book of Esther. So we have a Jewish holiday that comes roughly around the same time as Mardi Gras and Carnival, called Purim, and it is traditionally celebrated with these little plays, 10, 15-minute long plays. People would go from house to house performing, usually very lively, colorful, bright costumes, and some of them were telling the biblical stories. Some of them told other biblical stories. One of the most popular Purim plays actually was Joseph being sold into slavery by his brothers. So Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat actually has 500 years of theatrical precedent behind it. And then in the mid-1800s, another sort of performance tradition started, because the Purim Spiel was only performed one day of the year. So there was never a professional industry that grew up around it. But in the 1850s, as Europe was becoming more of an open and enlightened, this was in the what we call the Enlightenment era.
More aware, right? Yeah,
absolutely. The Jewish population started having these sort of minstrel singers called the Brody singers, because they originally came from a town in the Ukraine called Brody, and they would perform in wine gardens and beer halls in Yiddish, singing these sort of epic songs, storytelling. And one of them was a young man named Avram Goldfaden. Avram Goldfaden was very worldly. He would attend the operetta theaters that were very popular at the time, the Viennese style operetta. And he said, well, look, we can do this in Yiddish. We can make this a Jewish storytelling. And one of his earliest operettas was this one called The Sorceress. And The Sorceress tells the story. It's a very familiar folk tale kind of story. Think somewhere between Cinderella and Snow White. The young lady you see there is Mirala, whose mother has tragically passed away, and her father has remarried a wicked stepmother of sorts who plots against them, together with the sorceress, the witch, who is sort of a con woman. Who plots with her to get rid of the father. They have him arrested on false charges, leaving poor Mirilla vulnerable. And then they send her off to the market to buy some groceries, but they steal the money from her. So when she gets to the market, she realizes she has no money to buy the groceries. She's afraid to go home because she thinks her stepmother's going to beat her. So the witch comes to her, pretending to be a lovely, caring, kindly old grandmother type lady who says, "Come home with me." But what she really does is she captures her and sells her to slavery to a Turkish organ grinder. Romania, this all takes place in Romania, is right across the Black Sea from Turkey, and slavery was actually practiced there until about the early 1900s. So her fiance comes looking for her and vows that he'll search the world over to find her. And he comes to this coffee house in Turkey where his beloved Mirilla is singing to make money for so she's the organ grinder's monkey, but rather than being a monkey, she's singing a beautiful aria. And he rescues her and takes her home, and the witch and the wicked stepmother get their just desserts, and the father gets freed from jail, and there's a happy ending. So it's very much of a fairy tale. This was done in 1876 in Romania, the birthplace of Yiddish theater, and then about 8 years later, in 1884, in New York City, there was a 14-year-old boy who was working in a cigar factory, and he had a little bit of musical training, but had never actually seen any theater of any kind, and he would hear his coworkers singing the songs from this show that they had remembered. It has a lot of very memorable tunes. In fact, the Yiddish Happy Birthday song comes from this show. And so he decided, remember, he's a 14-year-old boy. He says, "I'm going to produce this show. I'm going to make it happen here in New York." This is just at the very beginning of Yiddish-speaking immigration to New York. So he convinces a beer hall owner on the Bowery to put the money down to bring a company of actors from London. There was already a Yiddish theater established in London at this time. And he brought over this company of actors who played the lead roles. And then he found local people to fill in the smaller roles, himself included. And they were going to put on a show. But the German Jewish community, which was already fairly well established in New York at this time, saw this as a threat. They did not want they thought that they also thought that the best course for the Jewish immigrants to be safe was to speak only English and to assimilate as fast as possible. So they didn't want Yiddish culture to take root here. So the story goes that they paid off the leading actress to fake a sore throat. Now, here's the legend. There's a couple different versions of the legend. One version of the legend has it that this 14-year-old boy tells the orchestra, "Just start playing the overture. I'm going to go to her apartment and I'm going to get her to come down and perform." So he goes up to her apartment, and one version of the story has it that he did offer her a matching amount of money to what she was being paid off, so she came down and agreed to perform. But by the time they got there, the orchestra had just been playing the overture over and over and over again, and the audience got tired of it and went home. Another version of the story has it that he convinced her to go on. He not only did he have to pay her as much money as the Germans were paying her, but he also had to offer her husband the seltzer concession in the lobby. And then the third version of it says, no dice, this girl was not going to go on, so the boy puts the dress on and he goes on and plays the role. Now the 14-year-old boy, his name was Boris Tomaszewski, who went on to become a huge Yiddish theater impresario. If any of you guys know Michael Tilson Thomas, the famous conductor, Boston Pops in San Francisco, that's his grandson.
Wow. What a story. You're also like the theater's historian too.
In a lot, I love to
Have,
collect these anecdotes. I mean,
yeah,
this is the riches of showbiz.
it really, really is. I mean, you've been with them for quite a while now, haven't you?
17 years.
Wow. And how has your role within the theater operation sort of grown and expanded? I mean, you're the associate artistic director as well. How has it, have you taken on more roles and responsibility as time's gone on over those 17 years?
Oh, sure. So when I first started, I actually began by writing grants, and but with something very specific in mind. The very first event that I worked at with the theater was that gala in 2003, where Alan King
Yeah.
was one of the performers, and so our artistic director Zalman Mlotek was talking about the importance of getting out to the communities, getting out to reaching the non-Yiddish speaking communities, and bringing them into the fold. And I'd been doing, as you had mentioned, I spent 6 years down in Richmond, Virginia, doing DIY theater. Really, my background was in experimental theater, and a friend of mine who I grew up with was studying modern dance choreography at Virginia Commonwealth
Hmm.
University. So we formed a company together where we would produce each other's work. So we would do new sort of innovative, forward-looking modern dance and theater productions. And so I'd already been used to this idea of how do you get a scrappy group of young people together to make a show.
Hmm.
So I walked up to Zalman Mlotek after the gala. He had no idea who I was. It was just my very first day there, and I said, I'm gonna make this happen. We're gonna have a little touring company that'll go out to the communities. We'll make people aware of what Yiddish theater is, how much fun it is, that it's not something that's stuck in the past, but something that's really vibrant. So I started work right away writing these grants to get the seed money together. And it took a few months, but eventually we got the money started. And I went to some colleagues who I'd been studying Yiddish with at the YIVO program at Columbia University. Some of them had musical training. Some of them were very excellent Yiddish speakers, but really weren't experienced actors. And we sort of like cobbled together this group, and we spent about 6 months just sort of learning our craft together, helping each other out. The ones who are experienced performers teaching the ones who are not, the ones who are better Yiddish speakers, helping the rest of us to improve our Yiddish. And after 6 months, we started touring. We called ourselves the Troupe, and we would just tour wherever they would have us with this 90-minute Yiddish sort of vaudeville show. So it was sketch comedy and Yiddish theater songs, and we would go to community centers and libraries and nursing homes and colleges and really, just everywhere. And we would do our little show that we would throw everything in the back of a van, drive where we're going, put up a show with a little folding screen with a super title so people could understand. And so we did that for several years. We actually still perform from time to time, but that was sort of our very beginning. And then after a couple of years, we developed a relationship with the City University of New York, where we would bring programming out to the boroughs. So we would bring programming to Queens College, Brooklyn College, Lehman College in the Bronx, to Hunter College, and to Baruch College. And that was where it was sort of our crucible. We would test out new scripts, so we would do staged readings there. So this is where they got their first audience. So we would get, as opposed to the typical model where you do one staged reading and then that's it. You get only one bite at the apple. We actually got to take the show around to 4 performances, test out new material. We also presented concerts. If anyone there out there watching remembers the Barry sisters, Claire Barry, who unfortunately passed away a few years ago. We gave her very last concert in New York. That was a fantastic story as well. She was very popular among the Russians because the Barry sisters had been sent to the Soviet Union by Ed Sullivan as part of a goodwill cultural exchange tour, and so they were very well known. And then their records were clandestinely passed around from family to family in the Soviet Union. So all of these Russian immigrants came with the biggest bouquets of flowers I've ever seen to give to Claire Barry. I remember some of the older men had come wearing their army jackets from World War II to show off all their medals to her, to try to, to impress her. It was really just such a sweet moment. So that was sort of my crucible in my journey, because I was directing a lot. I was producing all of these shows, occasionally acting in them, and it's really where the craft got honed. So I started directing some main stage shows after doing that for a few years. The first one was an Israeli comedy translated into Yiddish called The Marriage Contract, which was a lot of fun. And then the next year I directed a play by Murray Shiskal, who unfortunately just passed last week. Some of you may know him. He wrote Love, L-U-V, big Broadway hit in the 60s. And he also wrote, he was one of the co-writers of the film Tootsie with Dustin Hoffman. Right. And so we did 3 of his short plays. And the one, there were 3 one-acts, and the one that I directed got very nice reviews. So Five-ish Finkel, who saw that show, brought me on to direct his last off-Broadway show called Five-ish Finkel Live. Then after that, we did another show called The Megillah of Itzik Monger, it's a very spirited Purim spiel, but like a very high-level Purim spiel. So it kind of, again, brings us back to the origins of the Yiddish theater. And then a few other shows here and there, but the big one, of course, was that I was the associate director working with Joel on Fiddler.
That was fantastic, huh? To have that opportunity. When you look back, could you ever imagine that it would come to this point and this level where you're doing these incredible productions, working with people like Joel and others that come through?
Well, Joel was another one of those that my parents took me to see the revival of Cabaret in the 80s. So I saw him as a kid, and of course I knew Jennifer Grey from Ferris Bueller's Day Off and such. So yeah, I mean, coming to and I completely failed to mention that show that my grandmother took me to see, The Golden Land. That was by Zalman Mlotek. So all of these people who I knew from my childhood, now as an adult, I had this opportunity. I work with Theodore Bekel, and I work with Five-ish Finkel and Joel Grey, and it's just it's just amazing how life comes full circle.
Absolutely. We have this terrific video that you sent along that I want to share with everybody. It's really, really cool. Tell us a little bit, sort of set it up for us, and do a little intro, and then we will share this with everybody.
Sure. So this is a monologue called Getzel at the Ball Game. It comes from the Yiddish vaudeville, which was also a very lively scene. It was created by a wonderful vaudevillian named Michel Rosenberg. It's one of the pieces that we perform in our little touring show. So I've been doing this for many, many years. And it's about an immigrant who thinks he's going to hear a great cantor, and he ends up somewhere else. But it'll explain itself.
All right, let's watch this, everybody. Enjoy. And then we'll be back as we continue with our very special guest right here on the Jim Masters Show Live.
Oh, ihr merkt gar nicht. Nicht so gedacht. Mich schicken. Bei mir ist gekommen ein Neues. Es in der Brownsville in der berühmten Hasen Jakob von der Alter. Nu, neem ich gleich ein Bronx-Subway und ich fahre zu Herrn mein Kassen. Meile ist die Train gewinn gepackt. Bei 164th Street geworden, Stippenisch, mit der Sparnisch, Bläuse rauszugehen. Upon ihm, du darfst der Kassen Janko. Ich gebe Kick. Ah ja, what is es? Janko Stadium. Ich gehe rein in den Subway in Lines mit Lines. Oi, wurde teune. Der Tag merke gar nicht, aber dass kommt die Kassen geht mit den Herren. Ich komme zu der Box Office und der Mann fragt mich, wer ihr wann ich should sit. Sag ich ihm, bei der Misere Wand darf ich nicht, aber ich kann nicht hören. Gibt mir ein Ticket, ich gehe rein. Da sehe ich etwas, der riesen Platz mit tausender Menschen, inmitten auf Feld, und auf beiden Seiten Trenches. Von einem Trenches kommt aus ein Mann mit der bräunen Such mit der MOTl Jamke. Upon ihm ist das die Quaie-Lieder. Nach ihm, ein Heffermann mit lange Socken, kurze Gatkes und ein wollenes Sweater. Und auf dem Sweater steht hinter geschrieben Janko. Und das soll sein, der Hasen Janko? Meile, wem stellt man sich da? Ne? Mit dem Alter will sich etwas setzt in der Plätze, so wie der rechte Link fällt mir runter. Ich gebe Kick und der Mann mit der größten Zigarre gibt mir noch ein Setz. Und er sagt, Buddy, it's gonna be some game. Frage ich ihn, was tut sich du? Wer ist der Mann mit der braunen Suppe und die Jamke? Sagt der, this is the Umpire. In der mit der geschwollenen Hand, was trug der Henschke? Sagt der, this is the Pitcher. Plötzlich kommt raus noch einem mit der Matratze auf dem Bauch und es Trainer auf dem Panama, so wie man sei Lockschen. Sagt mein Body, this is the Catcher. Was catcht der? Soll catchen Gold. Plötzlich, der Pitcher tut der Spei in Henschke rein, und geht reibt den Ball. Es wird auch Waffen nicht mit dem Ball. Vom Pitcher zum Catcher, vom Catcher zum Pitcher, vom Pitcher zum Catcher, vom Catcher zum Pitcher, vom Pitcher zum Catcher, vom Catcher zum Pitcher. Keiner von sie will nicht, dass der Ball soll entstehen dort. Plötzlich, es kommt der Reus, ein größer Geulen, mit einem langen Augerholz. Und mischt sich zwischen sie, und wie oft zu lachen ist, lässt nicht der Catcher hier in seine Arbeit. Der Umpire gibt ein Geschrei, Ball 1, Ball 2, Ball 3. Mit dem Mal gibt ein Geschrei, Strike! Ich bin ein Gitter Union-Mann. Und er soll wie ein Schaf, als einer schreit, Strike, stellt sich auf und regt sich zum Gehen Picketen. Aber mein Body sagt, sit down. Meile, öfter ist das ein Sit-down-Strike, setzt sich weg. Und es wird wieder werfen nicht mit dem Ball, von Catcher zum Pitcher, von Pitcher zum Catcher. In der Geule mit der Walgerholz mischt sich wieder zwischen sie, Energie, da setzt den Ball. In die Ball nimmt sich fliehen. In der Geule mit der Walgerholz nimmt sich läuft in der Rennen wie ein Maschigener. In mein Body nimmt mich ab in die Plätze. Sagt der Boy. In die Ball, es flieht. Und in drei Heber, laufen noch hin. Ich frage mein Body, wo stehen sie? Sagt der, they are trying to catch the fly. Ist das Tag in Arbeit? 3 lange Leitzen drehen sich herum, den ganzen Tag, haben fliegen. Krank sind sie zu gehen arbeiten. In dem Michigan mit der Walgerholz. Läuft. Was läuft er? Mit sehr Jugbim. In meinem Body nimmt mich ab in die Plätze. Sagt der Boy. Run home. Wer hat gewusst, es gehen zu Herren nach Hause in Amerika. Wollt gewinnen so gefährlich. Bin ich heimgelaufen in Getzel.
Well, it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game.
And I love the expressions too. You really took on the character as well. So tell us about that. That was very, very good. I loved it. And people we're looking at some of the comments that are coming in here, and everybody is they're laughing so hard that they are splitting their sides. Some of them. Judy is really having a ball with our show. It's good to see you, Judy. Welcome to the Jim Master Show Live. Oh, thank you so much. How do you say that in Yiddish? What she just said.
A schönen Dank.
Easy for you to say.
Was Judy? Was this what somebody said that I saw in a comment before they were related to Mike Fox?
I think so. I think Juanita in South Africa loves it. You've reached all the way to South Africa and making them laugh in South Africa. June loves it. Bernadette, great bit. Sherry loves it. Of course, we're going to show that again because we love that one. And they're coming in fast and furious. Thank you, Jim, and thank you for the laughter. I'm from the Bronx. I'm dying here. Yep. Renee in Iowa. Mike is her cousin.
Yes. So Mike just did a thing with us last week. He's one of the creators of a show that we've been doing for many years called Kids in Yiddish. Mike created that back in, I think, the late 90s. And he wrote its signature song, beautiful song called Regenbogen, which means rainbow. And so last week, we did a big reunion concert with Mike performing, as well as many of the original kids who had been in the show 20 years ago, who are now grown-ups with kids of their own.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Something else too that I just want to show folks that you were doing was this. Tell us about this.
15-minute Yiddish. So early on, when the pandemic started, the theater company shut down its operations here in New York in the second week of March. And one of our staff members, Gia Pace, suggested on the very last day when we were packing our things up, and we thought that we were going to be in lockdown for 2 weeks or maybe 4 weeks tops. And she said, look, people are going to be really isolated and scared. Why don't you guys do some programming on Facebook Live just to, keep people engaged? So we put together a week of programming that premiered the very last week of March. I did a little talk about the history of Yiddish theater. Zalman did a concert from his living room. One of our other staff members, Joe Mace, who's an incredible singer and voice teacher who was in the cast of The Golden Bride. He did a little living room concert, and people really, took to this. It was really something that was sort of grounding them, just like your fans who tune into your show every night. This was keeping a community together of people who love Yiddish theater. And after doing this for about a month, people were saying, "This is great. Can you give us some Yiddish lessons?" I'd been actually teaching Yiddish classes, what we call shmooze, like shmooze, conversation classes, for several years. And so we thought, okay, I could do online Yiddish classes, but I think it'll be a lot more fun if we make it theatrical, rather than me just, when I do my classes, I have, projected images, and it's like learning any language. This is how you conjugate verbs, and this is, adjectives, and blah, blah, blah. And the most fun part of the classes when I'm teaching them live is not me, it's the students. It's the places that they take the conversation and bringing themselves and their stories of how their families came to America and brought Yiddish with them, etc. And so I decided, well, it's to keep people engaged. It's not about, they'll learn the Yiddish vocabulary and the grammar, but I have to be the students, because I'm here by myself in my home, and I don't have access to the actors to play the roles. So I created a core group of 6 students. And I play the teacher as well as the students. So they have all their little side conversations, and they run the gamut from a retiree living in Monroe Township, New Jersey, to a teenage boy. There's a Borscht Belt comic named Murray Schwartz. There is a woman named Sophia, who is just, she's a professional celebrity. Nobody really knows why she's famous, but she's famous, and she lives in Sorrento, Italy, and tunes in, and she's very fancy, but she speaks very pedantically like this, but she's from Flatbush, Brooklyn originally.
But of course.
And and I have a professor, the Jewish professor, Thomas, who is a Jewish studies professor at some very obscure community college in the wilds of Alaska. And he is very proper, and he speaks like this, and he's the one who explains all of the nitty-gritty of grammar and things like that.
Thank you, Judy. Judy's really loving it. Judy.
You can watch all of these.
Judy.
So season 1 was 15 episodes of 15-minute Yiddish. You can watch them all. They're archived at nytf.org. nytf.org. That's our website, nytf.org. Click on the button that says live. It's not really live, it's archived, but click where it says live and scroll down the menu. We have about 30 some hours of all sorts of programs there, concerts and theatrical events and things like that, as well as the Yiddish classes. And you can also go to YouTube and just look for 15-minute Yiddish. You can find them there as well.
Now, for people who aren't that familiar with the differences between Yiddish and Hebrew, tell us the differences.
So Yiddish is sort of a layer cake of languages. So in ancient times, the Jews living in ancient Israel spoke Hebrew as their daily language. Then came the what we call the Babylonian exile, where the Babylonian Empire conquered the Israelite kingdoms and brought most of the population to live in Babylon, and they started speaking a language called Aramaic. Then after about 100 years, they were allowed to go back home, but they still spoke Aramaic, and Hebrew became the prayer language. Several hundred years later, the Romans came and they occupied Israel, and unfortunately they destroyed the kingdom entirely, and most of the Jewish population was scattered, but many hundreds of thousands were brought to Rome as slaves, and they started speaking Latin mixed with Aramaic and Hebrew. And then when the Roman Empire fell, some went west to Spain, and they started speaking this sort of Spanish, Latin, Aramaic, and Hebrew mixture called Ladino. And some went north into this territory between what's now Germany and France, and they started speaking the local languages. So Yiddish is Middle High German mixed with Latin and Aramaic and Hebrew. And then as the population spread out to the east, it started to take on words from Polish and Russian. And then when the population moved to America in around 1900, you start even get a lot of English words mixed in.
That's a fantastic explanation for everybody. A lot of people, too, when we have the guests on, they're always fascinated by the guests' backgrounds. And some people are asking, and I'm intrigued, too. You've got two fantastic framed photos behind you.
Oh, yes.
Tell us about those.
These are illustrations from children's books. The one on this side is a chicken goes to Brownsville. It's a story about a Yiddish-speaking chicken that gets lost in Brownsville, Brooklyn, which at the time was a very Jewish immigrant neighborhood. This one is called. It's an adventure story called. The Yiddish title is Wer läuft gicher? Who goes faster? And it's a story about these two pilots who are having an airplane race. And then just to show how fast they're going, there's a speeding locomotive in the picture as well.
That is cool. See, now everybody's going to rest easy tonight because now they know those two fantastic photos you have behind you.
And then I've got back here, I've got some of my costumes from my characters of 15-minute Yiddish. So, I put on my the wig and the hat, along with a couple other accoutrements, and now you've got Helen, who is one of my oldest students. And this is the very fancy Sophia, who calls everyone darling. But you have to imagine a little bit of a wrap and some lovely jewelry as well. What else do I have back here in my goodies?
I don't know about you, my friend, but I think costumes are great, don't you?
Absolutely.
You seem to be staring. Is there something wrong? Is
No.
your picture? Everything's good? My allergies have been acting up lately. We got these, actually. This is courtesy of Doug Denoff, the investor
hello to
producer.
Doug.
He's a dear friend. 39 Steps. When they did 39 Steps, everybody got one of these.
It was Doug who introduced me to June, who introduced me to you.
And June introduced me to Doug and to you. We're all family.
June is the connector. Hello, June.
We are all family, and she's loving the show as well, which is fantastic. So we have a couple of clips too. They're very, very short, like little bullet clips here from some of the
from the Sorceress.
performances, that that the team sent our way. So we will just quickly, that's just a couple of seconds each. So we'll share those and we can come back. Here they are here.
The witch.
Really nice, just quick little teasers.
So unfortunately, we are bound by some union rules about how much we're allowed to show.
Union and copyright and all these things, and
So the first clip, you may have noticed that the witch was played by a man in drag. This is very traditional for that particular role of the witch. It has always been done by some of the leading men of the Yiddish theater have played that role. The young maiden, the damsel in distress, is played by the fantastic Jasmine Gorslin, who's stalwart of the theater here in New York. And then that scene with the three witches around the kettle, it looked a little bit like that scene from the Scottish play.
Right.
And indeed, it is reminiscent of that. Those are the witches' apprentices.
Very cool, very cool. And just in seeing, the lighting and the staging, I mean, these are full-on productions, right? This is
oh yes, these are
real Monty, yeah.
Yeah, these are full off-Broadway productions. That one was a rather lavish one, and just always made me so happy to see.
So obviously, you're there to entertain people and to get them to think and inspire them through all these phenomenal productions. I would imagine that when things sort of came to a halt for literally the world in March, you had other productions, other things either ready to go or going, and then whoosh. So tell us about that and how the theater has been able to get through it, continue to still be there, and as you're waiting for when you can do this again, where people are actually in the seats and everybody is close and they're able to enjoy the actual productions up close and personal at the theater. What were you in the midst of when you guys were told we're going to have to wrap things up for now? Like Broadway's been told, everybody's been told.
Yeah, we were actually just finishing up casting for our production that was supposed to go into rehearsal in April. So fortunately, on the positive side, we weren't shut down in the middle of a production. But we are, whatever we lost, we are committed to resuming, and we have some very exciting productions on the horizon. That show was called The 10th Man. It's a new Yiddish translation of a play by Patty Chayefsky. That's the writer responsible for Network and Marty. Mm-hmm. And so
mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore.
Exactly. And so we'll bring that back when we resume. The first piece we're actually looking at, though, is a new opera called The Garden of the Finzi Cantinis by Ricky Ian Gordon. And it's based on the novel, which was turned into an Italian film, based on the true story of an aristocratic Jewish family living in Italy when the war broke out. And they were sort of living in a bubble. You wouldn't know that there was a Holocaust was taking place until the Italian fascist government fell and the Germans invaded Italy, and then the family was unfortunately sent to their death in Auschwitz. Then the other piece we had lined up, this is a really big, exciting one, is Harmony, the musical by Barry Manilow composed, and that's the story of the comedian harmonists, who is another true story. There was this singing group that was wildly popular in Germany in the in the period before the war. They were as big as the Beatles. They made dozens of recordings. They made over 10 movies. They toured internationally. Superstars, really. 6 guys, 3 of them were Jewish, 3 of them were not Jewish. And then when the war was coming, they were first censored and then they were outright banned. And they did all, the good news is they all survived, even the Jewish members of the group. They all were able to get out of Germany before the war, before the Holocaust started. But even after the war, they never got back together again, and almost all record of them was destroyed as part of the Nazi suppression of the work, because there were Jews involved in the group. They actually physically burned and destroyed the prints of the films, and they destroyed all of their records. And there's a little bit that survived. You can actually see clips on YouTube if you look up the comedian Harmonists. That's a very exciting work. We did a workshop of that in the months before the shutdown, and Warren Carlisle is slated to direct that. Warren is the many of you know him probably because he choreographed Hello Dolly, and he's doing the Music Man coming up with Sutton Foster and Hugh Jackman, and he did Kiss Me Kate. So he's a very highly Broadway credited director choreographer. And Bruce Sussman did the book and the lyrics for that. That's Barry's writing partner. So for many of you who are Barry Manilow fans, the writing team responsible for many of Barry's hit songs, Barry and Bruce.
That's fantastic. Who are some of your influences? You know, who are some of the people that either mentored you or that you've looked up to along the way for you?
Sure. Well, when I was in theater school at Playwrights Horizons, my mentor and teacher was Bob Moss. Many people know him, of course. He really was part of the driving force. He was the founder of Playwrights Horizons Theater and one of the driving forces behind the creation of Theater Row. That area of off-Broadway on 42nd Street between 9th and 10th Avenue. He really brought it back from the brink in the 70s. It was, very terribly run-down area, and he really turned it into a place not only that's a destination to go for theater today. There's maybe like 10 theaters just in that one block alone. But the Signature is down there now, and a lot of that's where Fiddler on the Roof in Yiddish was at Stage 42 on that block. And so he was my mentor. He really, instilled that spirit, that DIY, make your own theater kind of experience, because that's really what he was doing in the beginning, and instilled that love in us and that empowerment that you don't have to wait for your big break to come along. You can make your own break, and that really stuck with me. As far as artistic influences, as I said, I really come more from a experimental theater world. So I think about Pina Bausch and Robert Wilson, Richard Foreman, all of these artists who really raised the experimental theater up to a whole new level. But I never lost my love of the downtown theater scene. I was working a lot with the folks at Here, the big art center down on Spring Street. Before they were here, there was a core group called Tiny Mythic Theater that was presenting mostly out of the Ohio, and I would volunteer as a student to work with them. A lot of them were my teaching assistants, and they had graduated a few years ahead of me. And just to see the work coming out, they had this summer festival before the New York Fringe Festival, in fact, called the American Living Room Festival. But it was a lot of that same, sort of energy, and all these, theater companies that really have made their mark in the experimental theater world, like Elevator Repair Service. I remember seeing their very first show ever, down at the Ohio Theater as part of that festival. And as I said, I just grew up with theater. So my parents and grandparents were taking me to see Broadway shows from the time I was very, very young.
Mhm.
I promised I would tell the Camelot story. So we had tickets to see Camelot with Richard Burton, and he was known to have a drink or two, sometimes right before showtime. And just before the curtain was supposed to go up, we heard yelling from backstage. And then, like, sort of, you could see the curtain, like, kind of billowing a little bit. And
Was Liz Taylor there?
no, this was after that time.
I was going to say, that would have caused the yelling.
This was already around, like, maybe 80, 81. And I remember all of a sudden it went quiet. And then you heard over the God mic, "Ladies and gentlemen, this evening the role of King Arthur will be played by," because apparently he got drunk and got into a fight with someone right before curtain time, and they had to pull him and put on his understudy. So I never got to see Richard Burton.
Interesting story. Merlin, who's celebrating her Thanksgiving, our neighbors to the north, all of our, once again, if you joined us late, we say happy Thanksgiving to all of our wonderful Lovity viewers who are in Canada, who are celebrating Thanksgiving right now, and ours is next month. Do you like musicals the best, she asks. And anybody has a question, feel free to post one on Facebook Live right now and YouTube on a YouTube channel.
It's a hard call. I mean, yes, I love musicals. I grew up with seeing some of these legendary performers. I've always been a little bit more drawn to dramas and comedies. But I'll just say I love theater.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to, it's like asking which of your children do you love the most. It's really,
yeah. Tell us, for folks watching who are wondering the role of an associate artistic director at a theater, define that for the Lovities watching right now.
Sure. So there's a lot of responsibilities that I have, and some of them are a little bit unique to working in a non-English language theater. But a lot of it is in researching and selecting or proposing projects. So finding plays for us to produce. On the production side, it's a lot of planning and support on the front end. Who are we going to hire to direct it? Who is going to be the stage manager? Who's going to be the design team behind it? I'm in the room all through casting. I take on the additional role very often of being the Yiddish language coach. Most of our actors are not fluent in Yiddish. A lot of them have worked with us at some point in the past, so have some capacity with it, but we also bring in a lot of new people who have never worked in Yiddish. So I make recordings for them and translations for them. I also, in many shows, I design the English translation super titles and other visual elements. Sometimes I direct the shows. Sometimes I perform in the shows.
All of the above.
Yeah, it's really
sweep the floors. You do whatever it takes to keep things going.
Yeah, it's really a little bit of everything.
And you love it. I know you do. So in that vein, as far as keeping things going, obviously funding is a big part of theater operations, to keep the lights on, just to keep things flowing. Even when they're not going necessarily. How is that working, and how are you doing various either fundraisers, or how can people contribute and support even during these times? Because right now people are sort of picking and choosing who they can help and how they can help as much as they can. How is that working for you guys at the theater?
Well, like most theaters, we were pretty much devastated in terms of our normal operations. When you don't produce live shows, you can't sell tickets. Our online shows are pretty well attended, but they're all free. We do ask for donations. We've been impacted, like many theater companies have been impacted, in terms of we've had staff layoffs and hours reductions. So we do rely on the support of our viewers to ensure that we keep going long beyond the 2 to 4 weeks that we thought we were going to be shut down. So on our website, when you go to see any of our shows, or if you just go to our website, there's a big red donate button in the upper right-hand corner. And if you click on that, you can make a donation. We just did a week of sort of a mock telethon last week.
And what's the website again?
nytf.org. We have a couple other fundraising events coming up pretty soon. December 8th, we're going to have a big gala. I can't announce any of the big celebrities who are taking part yet until the announcement goes out publicly, but stay tuned because there's a lot of really wonderful names that are going to come out and lend their support to the Yiddish theater. And then we've got something very unique happening later this month, from October 28th through November 1st. We came across about a year ago, long before the COVID, a script for a play called It Can't Happen Here. It's based on a Sinclair Lewis novel, which it was written in 1935, imagining what if America had a fascist dictator. And in 1936, it was commissioned for a theatrical adaptation by the Federal Theater Project of the Works Progress Administration, the WPA. For those of you who don't know about that, during the Great Depression, the theater community was also devastated. People didn't have money to keep theater companies afloat. So the federal government, as they have during the pandemic, have had stimulus. And part of that stimulus to get people back to work was an organization called the WPA. Mostly what they did was they built bridges and tunnels and roads, and they built the Hoover Dam and the Lincoln Tunnel. But they also had an arts branch. There was a federal theater project, federal dance project, federal visual art project, and federal music project. You can still see this. If any of you ever go to Harlem Hospital, you can see gorgeous, gorgeous murals that were painted as part of the WPA. The film, the play that was adapted for the film, The Cradle Will Rock, is all about that as well. So the Federal Theater Project commissioned a theatricalization of the play It Can't Happen Here, and it was produced by 21 theater companies simultaneously, including many non-English language companies. The WPA had the theaters in Yiddish, in Italian, in Spanish, in French, in German. So we found the original Yiddish translation from 1936, and we were planning on presenting it as a reading ahead of the election, just to remind ourselves that the price of freedom is vigilance. And when the lockdown happened, we were having a conversation with our friends from the New Heritage Theater Group, which is the oldest nonprofit African-American theater in Harlem. And just as part of the conversation, one of their members said, well, what we need is a new WPA. And I said, bing, the light went off again. And I said, yes, we do need a new WPA. Our entire industry is drowning. Our actors can't work. Our musicians, designers, technicians, set builders. I mean, when you see a show, you have to think about there's over 100 people who are working.
Ticket takers and people, cleaning crews and
absolutely
food vendors and people in the parking garages and parking lots and promotional marketing, everybody.
Right.
Everybody.
So I said, yes, we need a new WPA, and we have this particular play, which is very timely. It's related to what's going on in our world right now, and it comes out of the WPA. So why don't we do this together? So we found 9 theater companies. We'll be presenting in 6 languages. So each company will be doing 1 or 2 scenes. So we've got, besides National Yiddish Theater folks being a New Heritage Theater Group, we've got the Kairos Italy Theater presenting in Italian, the Turkish American Repertory Theater presenting in Turkish, Repertorio Español presenting in Spanish. We've got the Israeli Artists Project presenting in Hebrew, and then we've got Pan-Asian Repertory, Playful Substance, And that will be available for viewing from October 28th through November 1st. It's only viewable for 4 days. It's through the Theater Authority. It is a fundraiser to help. All the funds that we raise are going to be divided equally among the companies. There are over 60 actors who are participating, so we're providing paid work for more than 60 actors. And then a portion will also go to the Actors Fund, which is a fantastic organization. It's been around for, I believe, 140 years, and they help support not just actors, but anybody working in the theater arts who are in need. So they've been providing rent and food assistance, medical care assistance, all throughout the pandemic.
That's fantastic. So really beautiful work that you guys are doing. We want to show the that important website again if people want to learn more about all of these terrific activities and opportunities, and maybe even support the fine work of the theater. There is the website right there, nytf.org. In terms of, you mentioned some really cool things that you're working on. And June says a wonderful project. Absolutely. What are some other future plans that you guys have had for the theater?
Well, those three big productions that I had mentioned, those are the main ones that we'll be presenting here in New York. But Fiddler's not done yet. Fiddler was actually supposed to go, of all places, it was supposed to go on a 3-week tour to China in April.
Wow.
That obviously got canceled. And it was supposed to launch a national tour starting around now. It was going to go to Los Angeles for about a 1-month sit down before touring nationally. And there was supposed to be an Australian production that had already been cast that was supposed to be running right now. It was going to do, I believe, a month in Sydney and a month in Melbourne. So we hope that when the pandemic has passed, that we'll be able to resume the Fiddler plans as well.
Well, you know who loves all of these wonderful things you guys are doing at the theater, and who fully supports your work and wishes you nothing but continued blessings? Mr. George Burns himself. He puts a smile on your face from ear to ear, doesn't it? He loves it. He gives his thumbs up. He's got the cigar. He's all ready to go. Maybe he'll even make an appearance at the gala. that would be kind of interesting. That would be a haunted theater, I think. That would be God visiting you.
That's right.
It was interesting. Jennifer Barry had asked a question. I don't know. Maybe you have the answer. Are any of the theaters haunted? Have you seen a ghost? She sees ghosts and always has. And then Bernadette says, Jennifer Barry, that's why they leave on the ghost light.
That's right.
You haven't encountered any ghosts or?
I personally haven't. I mean, most of the theaters that we've been performing in since my time have been pretty much brand new theaters. So they don't have the buildings themselves. But we did used to have, there's an organization still exists called the Yiddish Actors and Friends Club, and they do dinners like 3 or 4 times a year. Unfortunately, they're not in their original location anymore. But back when I first came into this world, we used to have these dinners on the second floor of what had been the Hebrew Actors Union building on 6th Street, right off of 2nd Avenue. And so the Hebrew Actors Union actually predates Actors Equity Association. It's the first professional actors union in America. And so you had this little building, and you could feel the history in it. It had been, it was sort of the second floor of the first floor was the offices of the union, and the second floor became this actors club. So they used to go and play cards there after hours and hang out and drink and what have you. And it looks like it hadn't been touched really since the 60s. There was still a phone booth in there where people had scrawled in pencil whatever phone numbers they were calling. There was an old Zenith television that I'm pretty sure was powered by a hamster running on a wheel.
Right.
Pictures on the wall from, of all the stars who had been members of the club over the years. And you could feel, I won't say that I saw ghosts, but I will say that you could feel the history in the room.
Your history was there, very, very potent.
Palpable,
yeah, palpable. That's a good word. why do you love the work that you do? Why does it bring you such great blessing and such joy?
Well, I mean, I can't say that it's only about my own joy. It's about the joy that it brings to others, to the audience, and it brings joy on so many levels. To some people, a lot of our audience over the years have been Holocaust survivors, and for them to see the culture and the language that they grew up with, in which they were really afraid was going to be extinguished, to see that being carried on by young people, that brings a lot of joy to them. For a lot of American-born children of immigrants, to who may have gone, who this was part of their childhood, and as they grew up, they sort of, went away from it. And so for them to come back to it sparks another kind of immense joy. And then there's the my generation of people who are really kind of discovering it for the first time and seeing how much they connect with it. How it speaks to some deep part of them that they maybe didn't even know was there, and that's a different kind of joy. For me, I mean, look, early in my career, when I was in my 20s, I did what everyone else did. I worked day jobs. I was a barista. I was an office temp. I worked at a bank for a few years. So to be doing what I have always loved doing as part of my everyday job, I mean, that's one of the best things in life that you could ever ask for.
Absolutely. In terms of children and programs and opportunities for children, tell us about that within the theater too.
Right. So we started with that show called Kids in Yiddish, which ran for 11 years. Mike Fox was one of the creators, along with Zalman Mlotek, and Joanne Bortz, who is very well known in the theater community, was also in the cast of Fiddler. And that ran from the late 1990s until around 2011, 2012. And then Joanne just got busy. She was our director, and she got cast in several productions, including The Touring Fiddler, and then once on Broadway, and then Our Fiddler. And so that unfortunately sort of disappeared for several years, but we did a reunion concert 2 or 3 years ago, and then we did another one last week. But we have other children's programming that we've done over the years after Kids in Yiddish sort of ran its course. We did a show called Young Yiddish for a New Generation, where we brought klezmer music performances to summer camps and to other children's workshops at community centers and schools and things like that. And then we also had a Russian division for several years that was serving that newest generation of Jewish immigrants from the Russian-speaking community. And they had a show called they had a program, I should say, called Kompot, which was very interactive. So there was an arts component, but there was also a hands-on component, crafts and food, making recipes and stuff. And that was really wonderful as well. We're very dedicated. We really want the next generation to have the seeds planted and to love this as much as we did as kids.
Absolutely. Pay it forward. Exactly. Well, I tell you, it's amazing work that you guys are doing there at the theater. And we really wish you nothing but continued blessings, doing what you do so well and inspiring so many people, introducing them to, to Yiddish in the way that you're doing it with these brilliant works. I know it really touches, the hearts and souls of everybody that's there working so hard. And I appreciate your hopping on the show as my guest, and we appreciate the team, Jeff and Nate and everybody there who put some of these materials together, all of the folks that sent the photos, our dear friend June as well. And you are definitely welcome back anytime, my friend. Keep me posted on things as they develop. And it was really a pleasure having you here. And I hope the show met your expectations.
It far exceeded. I really enjoyed it so much, and I've been watching some of your past episodes, and it's just lovely to hear insightful conversation and bringing back that humanity of the lost art, as you say. So congratulations to you for bringing that back in such a meaningful way.
So your distant cousin Susskind would have approved.
Absolutely.
Well, it was really a pleasure, my friend, and I toast you. We always toast our guests, so we
Thank
toast
you.
you. And good, you do watch, so you knew to have something close
Oh,
by.
I knew.
That's it. We toast you. Cheers.
Oh, yes.
Or l'chaim.
L'chaim.
Very, very nice. And best of everything. This was terrific. And of course, nobody gets out of here without all of the lovely exits. Really, really nice. There's a lot of lovely on this show. And thanks so
Yes,
much.
thank you to all the lovities. Thank you for your lovely comments and questions.
Yeah, I tell you, I like to create a warm, comfortable, inviting atmosphere. Sometimes it's, hilarious comedy and levity. I tell you, we did a whole show where for 2 hours, we talked just about food. It was a pop-up show I did on one of the weekends, and it was amazing. Everybody was sending in their recipes, and it was just, if you bring up food, you've won them over. And I tell you, I do love a good knish with mustard. I'll tell you, I do. I do love chopped liver too, but not so good for you. You got to watch that stuff, right? I love it. Here comes all of the barrage of love. Well, throughout the show, Bernadette said she's been fully immersed, and that is a beautiful thing. I really appreciate, the audience around the world saying that. And Jennifer's thanking you as well. And Merlin in Canada. Boy, you are a master of history. So you've got master and masters. And June is missing coming to the actual theater. Bernadette, thank you so much for all of you do. Kathleen in New York, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Juanita asks, she's in South Africa. Any plans to come to South Africa? We have quite a large Jewish population.
Yes, we actually had a South African performer who we brought to our stage several years ago. Unfortunately, she passed on, but she was part of the Yiddish-speaking community there. So I would love to go. Yes, but we'll talk when the pandemic's over.
So there's a large Jewish population there. She also mentioned the guest we had yesterday was a songwriter and composer, musician who was live from Sweden. And she was mentioning there's a sizable Swedish population in South Africa, yes, but there's a sizable Jewish population there as well, huh? That's amazing.
Yeah, they took refugees.
Yeah, that's what it is. Jen is Zen. So Jennifer Barry's very happy. Mary Bishop is thanking you for the great conversation for both of us. We thank you as well.
Thank you, Mary.
And Harriskin watching in Southern California. Great show. Thanks for another wonderful evening. Kathy says, you've been very interesting. Of course, absolutely. Ann Wozniak, thank you as well. Very educational and enjoyable. Renee in Iowa, thanks for coming on the show and sharing with us tonight. This is like you're at a theater and they're doing the standing ovation. This is our version of it here at the Jim Master Show live with our lovelies. Bye from Willie's watching at almost 2 a.m. in Amsterdam, Holland.
God bless her.
God bless her. She's watching with one eye open, the other one's sleeping. Cheers from Anne. Cheers when we were toasting earlier from Bernadette and Christine Clifton in North Carolina. Lovity. Thanks for sharing your knowledge with us and with such passion. All very fascinating and enjoyable. Lovity. Cheers from Mary. Juanita, great and informative show. Thanks, guys. Our pleasure. Judy, loving it. Truly a wonderful treat. And thanks for subscribing to our YouTube channel at Jim Masters TV. Judy, we love it. Thank you so much for the chat tonight. Watching on YouTube, Kathy Short. Everyone who comes on Jim's show is family. So you're now officially inducted. You are a lovity. You're a lovity, my friend.
Thank you.
So when you go into the supermarket, socially distancing with your mask on, you could tell, I'm a lovity on the Jim Master Show live. You'll see what happens. They won't charge you extra. And I love this. Just a whistle.
A little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit. And XOXO, lots of that from wonderful June.
Love to you, June.
Welcome to Lovity Hall from Merlin in Canada. Juanita says the Jewish population in South Africa is now 52,300.
Wow.
And Judy's been cavelling ever since she tuned in. Now, for folks who are not sure, I know what it is, but for folks who are not sure what that means,
Cavelling is like bursting with pride.
Loving it, loving it. It's really interesting, and I love on purpose. I love to break things down and define things. Some of my friends are performers in Ireland, the guys from Celtic Thunder and other groups,
Oh,
and I've interviewed them in my professional work on public television as well. So they've been on the show live from Ireland. So it's been really, really on this show. And what's fascinating is sometimes they'll use certain Irish words that the audience here in the United States or Canada or other areas watching, other countries watching, maybe Australia, what have you, aren't as familiar with. So they'll say things like, we're having so much crack tonight. And I say, okay, no, we're going to have to define that, because tomorrow, if we don't define what crack means in, Ireland and Scotland and the UK, we'll both be in the newspapers saying on the JMS show they did crack. So it's CRAIC, and it means like a jolly old time, a happy time, like cavelling, like a good time, like happiness and a blast. So when they say exactly like Bernadette is saying, like Irish crack, it's the same thing. But you got to make sure that you let everybody know. Jennifer Roberts is here, wonderful performer and singer and actress.
Hello.
Jennifer Roberts. She was a guest on our show as well. God bless. May I stay safe and well too. 2:45 a.m. Yes, one eye open for Willie. She's a trooper. Keep an eye out for the ghost. The veil is thinning. Was it Samhain Halloween? 19 more days. I can't wait. Wow. Let's get a bagel and a schmear and a knish with mustard. Good stuff, my friend. This was really terrific. And again, we want people to see the website to learn more about, any upcoming things that are happening. The gala information will be on there as well too,
yes.
Right?
Yes.
What you said, you announced the date already?
It'll be on December 8th. It'll be available for viewing for 4 days. So you can watch it from the 8th through the 11th. And we've got some really amazing guests who are going to be making appearances. I just can't say anything yet.
Don't you wish you could?
It's eating me up.
But they're all probably well-known performers and stars and people who are very supportive of the work, and
yes, as well as much of our own talent. So if you enjoyed the cast of Fiddler and the Sorceress and some of those shows and the Golden Bride, a lot of those folks will be appearing as well.
Perfect. Well, my friend, you have a wonderful night, and thanks again for being with us on the show. It was truly a pleasure, and I'm glad we were able to put all this together. And you're welcome back anytime. And again, I hope you had as much of a great time with me as I had with you.
Had a wonderful time, Jim. Thank you so much for having me.
You are very welcome, and best of luck to everybody at the theater. And we will see you again soon, my friend. Be well.
Thank you. Good night.
Take care. Bye-bye now. Wasn't that amazing? You got a chance to learn so much too. And maybe you didn't even realize that the theater existed, that there was this national theater of its kind. And it really is an amazing place. And the productions are top-notch, first class. And if you want to learn more about the National Yiddish Theater, you can certainly do that by going to nytf.org. And again, it's really absolutely incredible, the work that they do. Hardworking team. And of course, right now, a lot of the theaters, things are a little bit dicey, but they're still going forward, and everything that either stopped or that was planned, they are gung-ho about bringing back once they're able to do that, which I think is a beautiful, beautiful thing. And again, that's the website if you'd like to see more. And we do thank my very special guests and all of our friends there again at the theater. They are absolutely amazing. I love that logo too. Isn't that logo really colorful and just makes you, you can feel the creativity in that logo. I love the design of that logo. More thank yous coming in for our very special guest. Yes, MOTl DIDNER. He is amazing. He is the Associate Artistic Director of the National Yiddish Theater, Volksbühne, and really, really amazing to have on. And again, some of those productions, you can see just the top shelf stuff just with that production right there. Look at that. You're very welcome. And yes, he's a lovely now. Please come back soon, Sherry. I'm sure he will be back. He'll keep us apprised of what's going on. Great conversation. Thank you both. You're very welcome. Jennifer Roberts as well. And really cool stuff. Hopefully you learned something today too on our show. Want to let you know we have got a brilliant actress and singer and producer on our show tomorrow. She is a hoot. She's also a dear close friend of ours. This is a legendary actress, Mary Ellen Ashley. That's right. She's going to be with us tomorrow on the Jim Masters Show Live. Here are just a few. I mean, some of her. That's a cool picture. She's doing boxing there. Really cool picture. I won't show you all the pictures because we have several cool ones here. Well, look at her there. She was actually playing a bag lady in that particular performance, but she's a riot. She's a hoot. She's a legend, and she's going to be here as well. Yes, on this show, everything. You got it, from Celtic Thunder to the National Yiddish Theater, and so much more. Check out all the past episodes, 23 weeks of episodes at Jim Masters TV. You're very welcome, Jennifer. You're very welcome as well, Anne. So Mary Ellen Ashley is going to be our guest, and that is tomorrow night. It's going to be fantastic. We're so excited. And then we've got a wonderful singer, a teen singer who's going to be joining us, and she's up and coming, and she's brilliant. Maggie Perry is going to be with us on Wednesday. And then live from Los Angeles, another wonderful actress. This is Charlie Marie. She's going to be with us, and this is on Thursday. We're very excited to have her. Want to let you know as well, we do have some upcoming guests coming in just a few weeks. This is Keith Harkin, the brilliant former member of Celtic Thunder. I've interviewed him many, many times on public television. He has a brilliant solo career, and he's going to be joining us before you know it here on the Jim Masters Show Live. As well, Melissa Manchester. We're very excited. The renowned record producer and songwriter and musician Phil Coulter is going to be here live and direct from Ireland. Another brilliant performer from Ireland, Irish pop star, lyric tenor, singer, and songwriter George Hutton is going to be with us here live on the Jim Masters Show Live as well. And some of you asked me to show this photo again, so I'm very happy to do that. And this is myself in college with Helen Reddy, who we just lost a couple of weeks ago. The wonderful Helen Reddy, brilliant Australian singer and songwriter. I Am Woman, Delta Dawn, all those amazing songs. And I was in college working for the school newspaper as the feature reporter, also working for the school radio station, president of the university's debate team in New York, and had the wonderful honor to interview Helen Reddy when she came to the university, and it was wonderful. And she was a delight. I know in that photo, I look like one of the Beatles, right? I'm on the right there holding my paperwork and my press pass and chatting with Helen. She was amazing. Absolutely a wonderful spirit. So as we always say here, put a smile on your face, share a smile whenever you can, share the levity as much as you can, and find your Zen place. Mine is always with loving family and friends, my work and my career, you know, as a host and all the other things that I do as a TV and radio personality. Also cycling and tennis. The ocean is also my go-to place. Growing up on the coast here, have always loved the ocean. So that is my solace. That is my go-to place. Always find your go-to place as well. And we always say relax. I always show this every night. We got this in Newport, Rhode Island. Relax, take care of one another, love one another, be kind to one another, and love yourself too. As much as we care for others and love one another, make sure you love yourself too. Not just during these times, like the crazy year we're all experiencing, the unprecedented year, but every day. Relax, take care, and be well. We're going to wrap things up here. All of your friends are here. Yes, I know you love the cast characters. So George is here. He says good night. And Jeannie is here. I know you love to see Jeannie and her bottle. So Jeannie is here. She enjoyed the show. She's blinking at you. You got to look fast now. Look fast. She just blinked at you guys. Silver is here. When I was on that television shoot in Europe, in Switzerland, we picked up the Silver Lab Silver. So Silver says good night to you guys as well. He enjoyed watching. We've got some more. These cast of characters you love seeing. So here they are. Jimmy is here. He says good night as well. Love seeing the wonderful performance tonight and wonderful show. And finally, Gilligan is here as well. Now, the big panda is here, Lin, who was a wonderful gift that was given to me for my birthday in September. And Lin is right over there, and we'll bring Lin back out. Lin is huge, the panda. We'll bring Lin back out over the weekend. But Gilligan is here, and Gilligan says goodnight. Aloha, Jim Dreamer Denver. This is Bob Denver's wonderful wife, who was a guest on our show. Bob Denver, of course, played Gilligan, was also Dobie Gillis. So he loved it as well. So you guys are amazing. And just want to say good night to everybody. Yeah, Lin, the big panda. We'll bring Lin back out. Good to see you, Jennifer, and good night to all the lovelies. Stay safe and sleep well. You too, Sherry on YouTube at Jim Masters TV. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, boy, we would love if you did that. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of the episodes. Plus, we have these inspirational Masters mantra videos that we do and a whole host of other things in addition to our series, The Jim Masters Show Live. We're here every single night if this is your first taste of our show. And we're live at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. We also do bonus shows, pop-up shows, afternoon shows sometimes. Good night, Ann in California. Judy, thank you, Jim. Trust me, you'll get sick of me, but I'm so very appreciative to you. Well, no, we will love you, and welcome to Lovity Hall, Judy. Judy. Great to have you with us. Spread the word, tell all your friends, yell out the windows. Hey, the Jim Masters Show Live is on. Matter of fact, if you can get yourself one of these, Judy, you can use one of these. I usually start the show with this. Lights, camera, action. The Jim Masters Show is on live right now. So you can use one of these, Judy, when you tell everybody about our show. Nothing better than a lights, camera, action bullhorn there. You're very welcome, and good night to Renee in Iowa as well. Not today. We're going to wrap up early, but that'll be coming up soon. So stay tuned for that. Good night to Juanita. Everyone be well. Love all these great comments. Thank you, Judy. You have a great night as well, June. The bear is your spirit animal. So that's the panda bear, right? Good night to all lovelies. Stay safe and sleep well. You guys, we got to scoot off. It was a pleasure. Always love doing these shows with you. And stay tuned. We will have Viewer of the Week coming up. We will have package opening and all kinds of cool stuff. So stay tuned. We're going to wrap things up here on our end. We thank our very special guest. Again, MOTl DIDNER. He was amazing. And so are all of you. This is your host, Jim Masters, thanking you for your time this time. Till next time. Good night, Willie in Amsterdam, Holland, the Netherlands. We hope you enjoyed the show. We hope you return tomorrow. We will be back 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. It's always a blessing and a joy and a pleasure to have you with us. And if this is your first time, thanks for joining us. And with 23 weeks, we're just getting started. Although we do it every day, so it's like 150 episodes so far. Whew. Wow. I need a bubble bath. All right, gang, we're taking off. Good night. Love you all. Be well. And it's a pleasure having you on the show. Couple more comments sliding in here. Good night, lovelies. You too, Christine. Have a wonderful night as well. Good night, all. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for being with us on the Jim Masters Show Live. Good night.